OJA. So that video invitation was sent out to 10 people, one of them being the members of the Phil Lab. But it was sent to Nathan Madrid, who was the pastor of the Crest Church at the time, Andy McDonald, Fernanda Santos, who's here, Shelley Villanueva, Anthony Ocherick, David Banks, who is not here with us tonight. He had other meetings that he had to attend. Mike Colley, the president of the Florida Conference, who's here with us this evening. Lauren Merklin, who's joining us right here. Lauren is an education expert who was living in Los Angeles at the time that we began engaging with her and is now in eastern Kentucky. And we were later joined by Valmay Lowry. Everybody who we invited said yes and engaged with us on this trek that we began. I'll tell you, the 6 to 8 sessions turned into more like 12 to 14 sessions, and the 2 to 3 hours turned into 4 to 6 hours. And that was not even counting all of the stuff we did when we weren't in the innovation lab. I think the problem was that it just took them a really long time to bring me along. But it was quite a process, and I've thrown some stuff up around here, just not so that you have to examine any of it, but just to give you an idea of sort of what the end of one of our evenings looked like. And we killed a lot of trees. In addition to that, we put tons of stuff on whiteboards that was, taken pictures of and we never saw again. But it took 6 months of concentrated thinking to realize that we didn't even know what question we should be asking. So after about 6 months, we began to focus on, and this is where we were beginning, to understand this was beyond OJA. We always understood that, but it was even beyond Adventist education. So after 6 months, well, what we had done in the process, I need to tell you, we spoke to hundreds of people. We toured several schools. I myself toured 5 schools, I believe, everything from a small Baptist school that has a tuition rate of about $3,500 a year to Windermere Prep, which has a tuition rate of about $21,000 a year. Trying to understand what people were looking for in schools. We invited parents, students, teachers, college presidents in to speak to us in the Innovation Lab, and they all graciously came and spent their time. And after learning the empathy process, because that's the first thing we had to do in Phil, is understand that we needed to get out of our heads and into everybody else's heads. Because as much as what I think what I want is important, it really isn't. But we need to find out what it is that students and families want and need. So after 6 months, right here, you are looking at the sum total of our productivity of 6 months. After 6 months, we finally realized what we thought was a good question, a good challenge for us. And that was that we should be involved in creating a school of excellence that students enjoy. I still say kids. It sounds simple enough, doesn't it? It really does. But we had come to believe that, number one, the word excellence is loaded. It's an absolutely packed, loaded word. And excellence means a lot of things. I think one of the best explanations of excellence I ever heard was Dr. Monica Reed was giving the keynote address at FLA one night. And she was, in its most simple terms, excellence means a thing that does what it's supposed to do. A hammer that is able to hit a nail squarely is said to be an excellent hammer. So it's really not a lot more complicated than that. But there's a lot of things, and in the video I talked about, sustainable finance, and sustainable finance is included in excellent. You're not going to have an excellent school if it's not sustainable. And there are a lot of things included in that. But the one that really stuck with us, and really we ended up focusing and spending most of our time on, is that students enjoy. Because I'm not always convinced that students enjoy education all that much. So as we began to wonder what it meant for students to enjoy and what kind of an education students would enjoy, we began also to think about what is the product that we wanted to produce with our schools. And what I mean by that is what's going to come out of the other end. And it took us a really long time to really focus on students. Because I was talking to Dave Banks and he said, healthcare has the same problem. Because typically speaking, in healthcare, the person receiving the healthcare is not the person paying for the healthcare. And it's really easy for us, he was saying, for us in AHS to forget that there's ultimately a patient at the center of this. And that's what we realized as well. Ultimately, there's a student at the center of this. But we spend way too much time thinking about what do parents want? What do teachers want? What does the church want? What does the bureaucracy want? What helps to advance our purposes? And we realized that we had to radically rein that in to thinking about what was best for students. What do students want? What do students need? And we concluded, again through our empathy, this was all brought to us from these hundreds of conversations, and I'm going to read them all to you, that what we wanted students to leave with, which is really the gift that we want to give students after they've been here with us for 8 years, or if they've been here with us for 2 years. When they leave, this is what we want them to have. We want them to be fearless. We want them to feel empowered. We want them to be tech savvy. We want them to be emotionally intelligent. We want them to be collaborative. We want them to be communicative. We want them to be skilled for high school or vocation. We want them to be a global citizen and independent. We want them to be a critical thinker. We want them to have an appreciation for the arts, to be change ready. We want them to feel good about Christianity and about the Seventh-day Adventist Church. We want our kids to be problem solvers. We want them to be socially skilled. We want them to love learning. It's right there. We weren't breaking new ground. We want them to be confident. We want them to be happy. We want them to embrace accountability.
Love Jesus.
Love
Jesus.
Have I gotten there yet?
No, it's about you.
Okay, we want them to love Jesus. That didn't mean to leave that one out. That's sort of core to who we are here. We want them to have integrity, to be a questioner, to be responsible, to be innovative, to have discernment, and to hopefully leave here at a grade equivalent above their grade level. Now, as I read through that, I'm guessing that it would be easy for a lot of you all to sit there and say that is such a Pollyanna list as to be meaningless. I mean, who on earth would not want this for their student? What school would ever not want this for their student? And surely all schools do want that for their students. But let's pick out a few of these and think about it. Collaboration is one. Do we want collaboration for our students? Do we want our students to be collaborative? All of you in your jobs, if you're given a project to do, my guess is, I know for me, if I'm given a project to do, it is the expectation that I will use every resource at hand to accomplish that project. I need to consult with people who know more than I do. I need to research on the internet. I need to do everything I can to be successful in a project. That's the way the real world works. You know what they call that in school?
Cheating.
Exactly. That's what it is. So are we teaching collaboration in school? We try sometimes. We make some halting steps. But for the most part, it is a far different environment than that. But there's a reason that we got where we are. And there's a reason that for the last 50 years, people have been just constantly complaining about education. The education system that we have now was fundamentally formed in the 1890s. Prior to that, education looked radically different than what it is today. And what happened is that there was a gentleman who was an industrialist, and he was traveling to Europe, and he went to Prussia, and he was impressed by how in Prussia they had changed the form of education. The reason they had changed the form of education is because prior to the 1850s, they had lost awful battles and wars. And the generals concluded that we need, if we're going to be successful in war, then we need to educate our young men in a certain way so that they will have a standardized education so that when they come to us, they will be ready to march in line, to follow orders, and to kill the enemy. And they created the best army that the world had known. And it worked very well. But this industrialist went over there from here, and he said, rightly and wisely, he said, the world is changing. And what we need, we're moving from an agrarian society into an industrial age. And we need workers. We need people who, whether they're educated in New York or Ohio or Kansas, we need a standard set of learning that people are going to have. And so he, along with Henry Ford and Getty and about 6 other of the industrialists that you would know, they got together and they commissioned what was called the Committee of 10. And the Committee of 10 was a group of 10 university professors that came together to identify how we would standardize education in this country, and it ultimately ended up standardizing education across the world. Prior to that, the notion of kids being segregated by age and by education being segregated by subject matter was a pretty foreign notion. It wasn't until 1893 that they got together and said, every kid in 8th or 9th grade needs to learn algebra, and they need to learn calculus, and they need to learn all these things. And fundamental to this was the notion that we need to teach kids how to be prepared for the industrial age. They need to be ready to go to work in factories and do the same repetitive task over and over and over and over and over again, and to do it well, and to do it successfully, and to do it without questioning it. And it really doesn't matter if they understand it. They need to do it, and they need to have the skills to do that. And there was nothing wrong with that. They implemented that so successfully in America that we became the dominant nation in the world. We won 2 world wars, and we changed the world. The problem was that as the 80s began to get here, the industrial age was already moving on. And people began to understand that we needed something different. And they began to do study after study after study that they're still doing today. But nearly everyone, for 30 years, nearly everyone concluded the exact same thing, which was we have all these standards and we have these kids, and what we need is more. We just need more. The kids just need to know more facts, more. And so what we did is we increasingly added to the load of kids. It breaks my heart to see that the amount of homework that kids do. It just kills me. Don't tell him, but my son did 11 hours of homework yesterday after doing a minimum of 4 hours of homework every day last week. And 2 days last week, he did 7 hours of homework. He's very academic. He does it. He wants to be the best. It's what he does. In 1981, preschool children, had their, on average, they spent 40% of their discretionary time at play. By 1997, they spent 25% of their discretionary time at play. And today, the amount of discretionary time they spend at play is in the single digits. So what we've done is we've increasingly said that they just have to know more. So I want to tell you something right now. I want y'all to know this. I've done it. You've done it. And that is, we have either said or thought of children that, oh, back in my day, school was so much harder. I'm going to tell you right now with absolute certainty, and you can disagree with me if you want to be wrong. Kids have never worked harder in school than they are today. And the way they're working in school is not the way that kids are created to be. One of the things on our list here is that we want kids to be creative. But do we want kids to be creative? When we're giving them a list of facts that, listen, you just need to regurgitate the facts. We're not looking for creativity. We have 1,000 facts that you need to know. And if you're done with that after 80-hour school week, well, then you can be creative if you want. Again, this is not OJA. This is school. This is the educational system. And it's got to change. It has got to change. We're killing our kids. ADHD, is it any wonder that everybody has ADHD? It's insane. ADHD hadn't been invented 50 years ago. I think there is some correlation between the ADHD and what we're trying to cram into kids. And what makes it worse is we're trying to cram all these kids. We're thinking of them as empty vessels that we have to pour all these facts into, which it made some degree of sense 60 years ago, when the more you had inside you, the greater advantage you were at. But guess what, guys? I have the sum total of all the knowledge ever discovered by man at my fingertips. Granted, for the most part, I used to watch cat videos, but I've got it all right here. What kids in the 21st century need to learn is not more content. They need to learn how to use that content. They need to learn how to apply it. They need to learn critical thinking. They need to learn how to learn. They need to fall in love with learning, not so that they can have the content in their head, but so that when they're faced with a problem in the real world, when they're faced with a problem at work, they know how to solve a problem. One of the worst things that we do today is, even with academic kids, is we spend so much time cramming this into them, and it's not fun and it's not enjoyable, but they believe they have to do it because it's what they've always been taught that they have to do. But the worst thing of it all is, even if you take a kid and you fill his head with every bit of knowledge known to man, and of course that's impossible, but let's say that it's not. You give them everything that humanity knows today, but they leave your school determined to never learn anything else because learning is such an awful experience. Guess what? The sum total of the knowledge of man is doubling every 2.5 years. So in 2.5 years, they're going to have decided they don't want to learn anything, they don't know how to learn anything, and they're not going to learn anything. And now, instead of knowing everything, they're only going to know 50%. And in 4 years, they're going to know 25%. And at that point, they'll be completely obsolete as humans. We have got to teach kids how to learn and the importance of learning. So, again, you can look at this list when you want to, but I'm telling you, this list is not just a throwaway namby-pamby list that every school is trying to accomplish, because every school is not, even if they think they are. So this became all the more important, but we sat around and we're still saying, okay, now we're completely overwhelmed, okay? Because that's what we want. But how in the world does that happen? And relatively late in our process, it shouldn't have been so hard to get me there, but we came to realize that there are schools that are doing this. And not only are there schools that are doing this, but there are entire organizations that are working towards this. And there are resources to do this. And we learned of something called, and many of you have probably heard of it, the Deeper Learning Framework. Okay? And when we looked into and engaged the deeper learning framework, it was as if they had sat in on our Phil lab, because it listed pretty much, it was secular, so it didn't have love Jesus, but I think it was implied. It had pretty much everything else on this list in the deeper learning framework. And we learn not only is is there a framework for it, but there's people putting it into practice. And there's a few things I'm sure you all have heard of. Project-based learning. Anybody heard of that? Okay. Experiential learning. Heard of that? Expeditionary learning. All of these things, these fall into the broader umbrella of deeper learning. So deeper learning doesn't necessarily demand project-based learning, but project-based learning fits under the umbrella of deeper learning, as does expeditionary learning and many other things. So we began to get excited because now we actually had a framework for understanding, but beyond having a framework, we came to realize that there were actually organizations resourcing schools to do this. So it existed, and there were schools that were doing this. One of the fascinating things, as far as I can tell so far, no two of the schools that are doing this look alike, which I think is a critical piece to the whole deeper learning framework. Because when you take the notion that every child is an individual, then you also have to expand the belief that every school is individual and unique. So there are concepts and frameworks that are consistent. There are resources that are available. There is training to be had. There are educators waiting to teach educators how to do this. The amazing thing, I don't know how far I've gone off this, so I'm just going to take a quick look. One of the things that I came to realize deeply is that what we are talking about here, what I'm telling you tonight, is not new information to you, okay? What I'm telling you tonight is a reflection of what I have been hearing from all of you for 10 years. We have in our handbook that we're going to be a school of experiential learning. So we've said that we're going to do it. I talked about the teachers and administrators that I've been involved in interviewing here. Every one that we've talked to, which is the vast majority here, we've said, this is who we are and this is what we're going to be, even though, quite frankly, we didn't know what that meant or how to get there. We just knew that we wanted it. Our mission statement is to develop a love of learning and a joy of service while following Jesus. Rena Freeman, a past board chair, is back here. She was leading the way when this mission statement was developed. And again, I wasn't participating, but I was watching. This was not, hey, what can we say that sounds good? This was a deep value that was labored over by the board at the time. And as I look on it, it's so clear looking at this. It is so clear looking in our student handbook. It is so clear when I see all the things that are happening around here. Our garden, our kitchen. Carrie-Anna Farfan, of course, right here, does a project, Code Blue, every year with her kids. Just this past week, Janet Braga came up to me and was telling, what was the name of the project that you did?
Age of Discovery, the Teach Interact.
Age of Discovery. Janet, as most of you probably know, is a passionate teacher. But she came up to me last week explaining the Age of Discovery, which was a project that she got from an online resource. And I saw a sparkle in Janet's eye that I haven't seen in years, I'm sorry. But more important than Janet, she was passionate because she said, my kids come in every day saying, can we do more of that? Can we do more of that? Can we do more of that? Her kids are thrilled. Her kids are anxious to get a hold of it. Sabrina Myler has been actively involved in making this a reality with our kitchen and our curriculum over in the middle school. I can't praise Sabrina enough, because over the course of the last year or so, she has done something that I have just stood in a corner and yelled somebody has to do, and she stepped up and did it. We now have the beginnings of her curriculum where in 6th grade they cook to learn what subject?
Science.
They cook to learn science. In 7th grade, during cooking, they learn literacy. And in 8th grade, in cooking, they learn social studies and history. And these are all a part of the concepts of the deeper learning framework. I would submit to you that these are our gropings towards this. It's what we've known that we want. It's what that we've said we want. It's what we've tried to do instinctively without knowing exactly what it was. We have moved towards it. And I want to submit to you before the time is over, we've tested the water. The water's fine. We like it. The path of traditional education, I believe, is a path to ultimate destruction for our kids. And we've got to change, and we are ready to jump in. I believe there is not a school anywhere better positioned than OJA to jump in. The beauty of it is that there's a lot of beauties of it. One is that we are an Adventist school, which means we're a private school, which means we can do what we believe we need to do. We're not just an Adventist school, but we're an Adventist school in a very unique community. There's only just several communities like this around the world, because we are in a place where there are multiple Adventist schools, which means we have the opportunity, we have the ability, we have the flexibility to try something different. Quite frankly, it's a gamble. We haven't done it. It's a gamble I'm willing to take. But if there are people that don't want it, that want a more traditional education, we have how many schools around here that they can choose from? So we are absolutely uniquely positioned to give this a try. Felicia Gale, I got to spend time with Felicia Gale. I don't know if she's here. And she gave me one of the best bits of knowledge that I want to share with you all. Because one of the frequent concerns of deeper learning is the notion that when you do this deeper learning, you are going to spend more time on a subject. When you do traditional AP civics in 11th grade, it means that you're going to spend one day on the Constitution. Okay? I would submit you can't really understand the importance of the Constitution with one class. If you're in a deeper learning environment, you may spend weeks on the Constitution, which means, let's not kid ourselves, which means there are other standards that aren't going to get covered. Okay? These things that we have continued to try more and more and more into, we're not going to cover them all. So we have to seriously think about that. We have to seriously contemplate what that means. And we don't fully know yet everything that means, but I can tell you one thing that I do know. I talked to Felicia Gale, and she told me that I was aware of the FOSS kits, but I wasn't really aware that that was a project-based learning system. And so I asked her, I said, so you're doing these FOSS kits instead of the traditional learning, which, by the way, it blew my mind when I found out that, you might want to cover your ears, Elder Colley, when I found out that the FOSS kits are not NAD approved curriculum. Which meant to me, you mean we have flexibility on curriculum? But she told me about these FOSS kits, and it's something that we've used here for years. And I want to be clear. While it's not NAD approved curriculum, it was done in cooperation with Florida Conference, and Florida Conference is aware of it and supporting it, and it's a wonderful thing. So I asked her, so you're not covering all of the standards? And she said no, probably about half. of the standards. I said, well, help me, because I still have a problem with this. Because I'm concerned we are in a test-graded world. So if you don't cover the standards, and my child is going to be judged on an ITBS test, or perhaps later on an SAT, they're not going to do as good on the test. She said, no, they're going to do better. And let me tell you why. And I can't thank her enough for giving me this nugget. She said, if you are teaching to the test and trying to pour all this information into kids all this time, then what it means is you are requesting of them rote memory. Now, anybody who has ever tried to program a VCR understands the difference between knowing I push this button, and after that I push this button, and after that I push this button, and after that I push this button. And if all you know is the order, and something goes wrong, you are lost. You cannot repair it. But if you understand the fundamental purpose, as Roberto does, of how to make the thing work, and it doesn't work when you push the button that you're supposed to push, then you can figure it out. So what she explained to me is that if I teach these kids, they're the FOSS learning kids, and they deeply understand what the learning is, then they can encounter a problem that they don't know. And they can break down this Latin word to understand that this is the root word. And the root word means this. And even if I don't understand what the root word means, I know what this Latin prefix means. And I know what this word after it means. And so now I can look at the test and I can conclude that based on what I know, this is not right and this is not right. And routinely, kids that are engaged in this kind of education, even though they don't get the standards, do better on the tests. It happens all the time. Frankly, there's not probably enough testing to say that conclusively, but it is strongly evidenced in that direction. I think one of the things I want to leave you with is, as Adventists, I don't see anybody in here who I think is not. I'm probably the most tenuous of any of you. As Adventists, this is back to the future. Okay? Ellen White was writing about education at the same time that this committee of 10 was forming education. But she wasn't taking her information from them. And she had very different ideas. The great quote from Ellen White is that our ultimate goal is to what? Speak it. You know it.
The harmonious development, or
For men to be
thinkers, not mere reflectors of others' thoughts.
thinkers of their own thoughts, not mere reflectors of other men's thoughts. That is what Ellen White's writings were all about. Thinking your own thoughts is what deeper learning is all about. Being a reflector of other men's thoughts is what traditional industrialized education is all about. So we already have a template. It's like the health message. Hey, I know I talk to Adventists all the time, get a little irritated when it's like other people get the health message and you're like, well, you didn't get it from us. That's because we had it a long time ago. We have this information as well. So, before tonight's over, I'll be proposing that OJA commit time, treasure, and a lot of work to a new educational framework characterized by the deeper learning framework. It's going to stay up here. If we choose to go this direction, it is going to mean absolutely complete commitment on the part of everybody to go this direction. It's going to require the commitment of every teacher. It's going to require the commitment of every administrator, of every parent, of the conference office, of the churches. We'll all have to work together on this. And, it's the one thing that I know for sure, change is scary, but we need not live lives of fear. I know that teachers, there may be some teachers that are concerned about what this means for them and what do I have to learn new, and let me tell you now, there's plenty of learning to be done. There may be administrators that don't know how this is going to come out with testing or whatever the other concerns are, and there might be parents that are just terrified of it and don't think it's for them. And all those reasons would be really easy to make us turn away from it. But the thing I can tell you for absolutely sure is that the kids are ready. And the kids are demanding it. And the kids want it, and the kids need it, and the kids deserve it. So, that is what I have to say to you all this evening. I would like to invite you now. What I'd like to do is to take about 15 minutes. We have 3 tables set up over here. And so what I'm going to invite you all to do is Andy and help me remember who those were. Andy and Pastor Colley, Elder Colley, and Anthony. If you all would go to that table, I would appreciate that. You can go ahead and go.
These are the innovation team members.
These are the innovation team members that I'm calling out. I would like to ask Shelley and Val May to go to this table right back here, and y'all will have Lauren with you as well. And Fernanda and I are going to go to this table. Now, the reason for this, and I'm going to actually take a little bit of a break first, because I want to give you all about 15 minutes to talk to whoever you want to talk to on the innovation team, because while this has been a team project, this presentation you've seen here tonight has just been mine. So I want to give you all the opportunity to talk to them and say, is John completely nuts? You know, is he off his meds or what? Or what do y'all think about this? And then we'll come back together, have a little bit of a discussion, and then enter into an official OJA board meeting. So take about 15 minutes.